This is my second try at this, so I hope we get it this time. I got to get a better system for recording. So we're back in the Idra Rabbah. We're on page Kufnun. I want to get started because I already did this once and it didn't take. I just don't know what to do. Now we're going to go over the words here. There are a few things that we have to say. So that we're on page Kufnun with the top paragraph. We're going to read the top, then we're going to read the Matok B'Devash, learn some secrets. This is what it's written. These are the kings who ruled in the land of Edom, Lifnei Malach Melech Livnei Yisrael. Now to understand this, there's no pshat that you're going to be able to understand from this at all. You're not going to be able to understand like what Edom means Esav and like that. It doesn't, at this time, doesn't go that way. So he says, Malka Kadma, there is a Melech that's associated with the name Adam Kadmon. Livnei Yisrael Kadmo, and there is also, in relationship to Yisrael, to Adam Kadmon, there is also a Yisrael that came first also. So now going back to the Malachim, all of them are carved out with all of their names, and they're called by their names. Below Iskaimu, but they didn't live, they didn't last, they have no perpetuity. Until they were left and we went to something else, and then they were hidden away. Then after a certain amount of time, they come back up, parsa, over this parsa, and then they are rebuilt in their proper rebuilding. They're restructured. This word tikkun really means to rebuild something, to build something, to make it back, but more like rebuild something that's broken. And here's the start. This is the start of the talking about what's broken. Now, let's look at Adam Kadmon for a second so that we can review some idea that he said in the first part, but which many people would not understand because it's so hidden. Is that our bodies are a reverse hologram of what the spiritual world looks like. So we could use our bodies to a certain extent because it's all one thing, only very physical in our case. But in the celestial world, the very beginning world, almost everything is nothing at all because it's just slightly removed from the perfection of the Ein Sof, which is not physical, not possible to understand. So here we're talking about the first somewhat physical formation, which is called Adam Kadmon. And Adam Kadmon has a head and a body and and legs and feet, and just like we do, all of those different parts, those also exist there as well, but in a spiritual sense, non-physical sense. Well, Adam Kadmon has a diaphragm, just like we do, and we I sent out this cylindrical drawing. I could send it again, but it's in our WhatsApp program, and you could see there that from the top of the head, there is a light source. Let's say that it's in, we could say that for us to understand it, we can understand it as a cylinder that runs from the very beginning of the head of Adam Kadmon all the way through to his feet. And then wrapped around it, starting at the ears, is another cylinder that's slightly lower, but it also runs all the way down. Now, when you get to the chazeh, which is the chest, the area with the diaphragm, then there's going to be another name. Let's go through the names, and then as you go below that area, from the belly button downwards, you get another name. So let's go over these names. So the first cylinder, the Panemius Dicus cylinder, which is on the interior of Adam Kadmon, is a series of letters. Yud K, Yud Vav Daled, K Yud, Vav Yud, Vav K Yud. We call this the name of Av. Now, I'm thinking, and I want to say, is that in my mind, these things are smaller than the smallest part of an atom. They are all pure energy sources, but that's all they are. That we don't have any way of really understanding or picturing them because we can't picture an atom except somebody drew some kind of a symbol for it. But even at that stage, there's no physical relationship, but this is deeper than that. And these are actually letters and numbers. But that's because the letters themselves can be converted to numbers. There's different kinds of ways it could be. So we have these names. So the first name is Av. Av is Yud Vav Dal again. K Yud Vav Yud Vav K Yud. Wrapped around that is another name called Sag. It's 9 numbers less. It's Yud Vav Dalet, K Yud, Vav Aleph Vav K Yud. Then wrapped around that at a lower place is a name called Ma. Ma is Yud Vav Dalet, K Aleph, Vav Aleph Vav K Aleph, and this is called the Milui of Alephim, because as you fill out the name Yud K Vav K, and you spell it out, you can spell it out in 3 or 4 different ways. And so that's what we're seeing here. Last name, which is the lower wrapping of the name Av, is called Ben. Ben is Yud Vav Dalet, KK, Vav Vav KK. So this is a different number. It comes out to be the number 52. So all of these are different wrappings. Now, in the lower element of the Ma and the Ben, there is a diaphragm, something called a curtain, in the parts of Ak, Adam Kadma. And so here the Rav is referencing that because he wants to talk about an olam that we have not discussed. It's even the Sod class hasn't gotten to this. We're 5 chapters away. We have to go through the Shari Akudim and really to be able to get to this next stage. It's a big stage, but he's telling you an answer way ahead of time. This is called the Olam HaNekudim, the Olam of dots. So what is dots? What are Nekudim in actuality? What do we know about Nekudim? Nekudim are the force that brings letters alive because they make sounds. Like the sound aw or ah or a or etc. The segel sound. All of these different sounds or different musical notes, let's say, so to speak. Those are the Nekudim. But the Nekudim in this sense is really something that comes out of the eyes of Adam Kadmon, and we're going to discuss that a little bit. Only what we're doing is really, like I say, like telling an answer way before you have the information to be able to know it. So let's see what the Matok Medevash says, because the last line that he said is that before they come out over that parsa, and then we start rebuilding them the way they're supposed to be built. This is before that time. Let's see what he says. So he says, the Matok Medevash says, Umevi Raya Shetikunoi Lo Iskaimu. So he wants to bring a proof that whatever was built from the 7 Malachim of that ruled in the Edom, the Eretz Edom, before there was a king of the Jewish people, he says, that time we want to prove that they didn't last. So we're just reading light print as much as possible. The next light print says, V'kosev Acharkach, and then it writes after this, V'yimloch be'edam, then he starts saying names, Bela ben Baor, and then he has all the names of the kings. V'yamas Bela, then Bela died. V'chein before Sham, Esa Sheva Malachim Shehem, and then after he said that Bela died, there was a king called Bela. And after Bela died, there was more kings. So now he's going to explain all the 7 kings, and he say their names. Bela, well, Bela actually refers to a sphera, that is a light source, or a holder of light, both. One's called Bela is called Das, Yovav is called Chesed, Husham is called Gevura, Hadad ben Badad is called Tiferes, Simla hu Netzach, Netzach and Hod, Trey Palge Gufa, that's a phrase that we'll see again, that Netzach and Hod travel together. They're the legs. So the legs are, well, one leg doesn't work, 2 legs do, so therefore called the true 2 halves of a body. Then the next one is called Shaol, and Shaol is the Yesod, and Baal Chanan ben Achvar is Malchus. So what are we getting here? V'masha kosa l'vnei Malach Melech l'vnei Yisrael. So what does it mean? It says that all of these 7 kings, each one of them lived and died. Then he shows you that they actually refer to Sviros, starting with Das, going down to Malchus. Oh, wait a minute. There's actually 8 pieces going down that way, but he combines 2 of them, puts them together, makes 7. So what are we talking about here? Well, what we're talking about here is that Hashem wants to build our world. This is the object of his affection, is to have his presence known and make a yichud, a unity, with something which is dense and dark and filled with the Yetzer Hara. That is impossible for that to happen. So in order to do that, we have to have midos. We have to have these different spheros. And the light has to go from one sphere to the next, until as you move it through these different attributes. And let's say, so for example, you have this concept of Das. Das is an innervator that brings shefa, or the flow of energy from the upper portion to the lower portion. Then it goes to chesed. So we have an idea what chesed is, and we'll talk about it more for sure. We have an idea what gevura is, what the Tiferes is, and what netzach and hod and yesod are. All of those are different limitations and adjectives to describe how the light is being formed and reformed in order to bring it to us, really. So what he's saying here is that these functionaries, they died. They didn't work. It didn't work. These kings that ruled Edom wasn't able to put it together. So let's go on to the next. So this, all he wants to say is this little secret that he wants to tell, the secret idea. He says, Ahaino Malko Kadmoah. So this we're talking about here, this is the black pen. This is the very basic king. Who's the very basic king? Melech Rishon Shuhu HaMalchus Ta'ak. Melech Rishon is the bottom, the very bottom of Ak. It's the feet of Ak, underneath the feet of Ak. But it's Ak. She Malchus, and he says if she is the Malchus of Rishon and B'kol HaMalchios. This is the very basic interior Malchus of all Malchus. What's Malchus? Malchus is an empty place. Malchus is a place that needs. It's a needy place. V'hu Hashem Ben. It's also known as the Shem Ben. That's what we use as the Shem Ben. Ben is spelled Yud Vav Dalet KK Vav Vav KK. This little tiny, how small could it be? Now, once again, it's me saying that it's tiny. I don't see the Rav saying that. I don't really understand exactly how I could portray it, but I understand it as some very tiny incipients. That's the way Fleischman understands. So he just says, Levinei Yisrael Kadmoah. Then he asks, we have to quote that person. What does it mean, the original, or the preliminary B'nai Yisrael? Kodem Olam Atikon, because now our subject of what we're really looking for is the Olam Atikon, the world that is, the world that we live in, is the world that, according to the Rav, is explaining this, is that this is the world of tikkun, the world of rebuilding. It's a process that the Jewish people are involved in. We are rebuilding the world. So this is called B'nai Yisrael Sheyatze Ma'ak. This is called, this original Jewish people is called B'nai Yisrael Sheyatze Ma'ak HaNikra Yisrael Kadmoah. So this Jewish people that comes out of Ak, but it's a very high, very deep, very panimistic level, is called Yisrael Kadmoah. Uhu Gulifu V'kol Elu Hamalachim Shenechaku Umalchu Ba'olam HaNikudim. So I said before, there is an Olam that is created in the universe, and it exists. It's not that nothing. The Adam Kadmon is still there, and so is the Olam HaKudim and Olam HaNikudim. They're all there. There's another Olam called the Barudim. If you remember, start thinking about these names, and you'll see that they refer to Yaakov Avinu in different kinds of places in the Chumash. They're hidden names. And you have to be able to attach those names onto this. So he says that these Malachim were carved out. They ruled in the Olam of Nikudim. Okay, we don't have to go into it anymore. We just know now that there is such a thing as the Olam of Nikudim. Shmachim is Karun. Nikroyim b'shemos hachasuvim b'Torah. They were all called by the names that they're called in the Torah. Bela, Yoved, Chusham, like we said before, we listed the names. He listed the names. Then he said, V'lo iskaimu, v'lo niskaimu ki nishbaru. But they didn't last. They broke. This he explains in the Eitz Chaim, and then we're going to see this in the Otzros Chaim, is that each one of them was mashpia to the next. They were in a straight line, one line. And as a result of that, when a tremendous amount of light came into Das couldn't hold the light because it had not only Das's light, but it had the Das of all the 7 spheros that are below him. So he couldn't hold it, so he broke. So then what's left, from Chesed going downwards, goes into Ches. You got Chesed rather. Chesed has got Chesed in it, it's got Gevura in it, and all the rest of the spheros, it has the lights that are going to them all in Chesed. It's too much for Chesed. It's a smaller sphera. It breaks. And down the line, each one of them has its own light, plus it's carrying the light of all others. There's no working together. They don't work together. They can't work together. And so as a result, they break. So what happened is that up until this time, as you read the Otzros Chaim, the Eitz Chaim, you realize that the Olamos, which we call Tzilus, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, they only exist as a result of this, because before that you were dealing with Adam Kadmon. But once there's a break in the Spheros, once there's a break in the Olam HaNikudim, then you see that there are certain spheros that remain in their original, are very close to the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. And then are those that are placed outside. And these are called Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya. We call them Bia, because they're really one entity. Because the difference between Bria and Yitzira and Asiya is only their distance from the center. So, for example, they're all considered to be outside of Atzilus, so therefore the Kedusha is very limited. They're very much exposed to the force of the other side. But the more interior one that is right next to Bria, Atzilus, is called Bria. And then the one that's next to Bria is called Yitzira. And then the one of the furthest, most outside part, where the break is the worst, and where the pieces of the broken shells of what was supposed to be possible to be able to create a world in which the Shefa of Hashem should be able to come in, that's called the Asiya. Well, we live in Asiya, maybe even the Asiya. But this is the idea. Ad Shabbat Zaman Tikkunim, and they stay there until the time of the Tikkun comes. And so now this is really important to what the Kabbalist is doing. What the Kabbalist is doing is trying to find ways of elevating those broken pieces. These are the sparks that are broken, there's different kalim that are broken, there are different words for these. And there are basically three different qualities. These qualities are called by the acronym Anach. Anach means Oros, Netzutzos, and Kalim. We're going to say over here, maybe he's going to say it here, I'm not sure, but he's going to say over here that the Oros really actually remain very close to their origin. So they don't fall into Bia. They remain in Atzilus. But on the other hand, you have the Netzutzos, the sparks. There are certain sparks that keep the Kalim alive even when they're in a broken state, and those fall into Bia. And then, of course, there's the Kalim themselves, they fall into Bia. The process of bringing them back into Atzilus and rebuilding the universe the way they're supposed to be built, the way that for the Tikkun, and the way the ultimate Yichud that can take place by making receptacles that are able to work and function together to make us systems that allow the light of Hashem to come back to us. That's what we're looking for. So now he explains what I just said. He hides the lights of these broken that were inside of these kalim. They remain in Atzilus b'toch kalim dekochav. They remain in the upper part of the 10 spheros of the Olam HaNekudim. Now, what does this mean? It's meant like this. There's Olam, all these Olamos have 10 spheros in it, or the Olam HaNekudim are not really spheres. There's one sphere with 10 parts. Here we have actually 10 complete spheros. The first 3 don't really break in the same way as the bottom 7. So we have to understand this is a rule. And the rule is that the upper 3, which in this case he calls, that's what he said, the Kochav, which is Keser Chochma Bina. So that acronym refers to the head area. The head area didn't really break, although this does suffer effects of the breaking of the lower 7, no question. So they remain in, those remain in Atzilus. So now we have the creation of Atzilus and Bria and Yitzira and Asiya. Levasa Zimna, and after a certain amount of time, Achar Zaman, but what's happening is by the efforts of people, ourselves, the Jewish people, now those of us who daven and pray and learn Torah, we're able to bring them back up. We bring pieces of it. That's what we're working on for these 6,000 years. So he said, so what happens here is that the lights that were down below the parsa, that's the lower level of lights of Adam Kadmon inside of it, but so now he's explaining a basic technique. He went different ways over here. So first he explained a big idea, the idea of the Nekudim and the break. Now he wants to say what happened preliminary to that in Adam Kadmon. So what happened in Adam Kadmon, and he said this in the first paragraph, but hey, this is stuff that's above the normal pay grade, right? This is like a whole bunch of secrets all laid out here and just told to you. So what happens is that the lights of yearning that are down below this parsa, we had said last week that they are pushed up. The Eibishter brings them up. That is the Ma'atzel himself. That is the force within the Ein Sof Baruch Hu brings this up. They bring it up, so he says, Salek but Re'usa the Lahalon. So he brings it up according to the will that we're going to talk about. The Liyasman. And now we have this concept, we mentioned it very briefly the last time. And it comes up back to the place, it goes up to the highest possible places in Ak. And this is called the Aliyah of Mayan Nukvin. That is the prayer, the yearning. But it's not the yearning that you and I have, because that's coming from us. This is coming from the Matzal himself. Because there's nobody down below, there's no Adam, there's no man in the garden in order to be able to make tefillah. So therefore, Begarmo Yichud Chub Da'ak. And what it happens is that as a result of this is always what happens. This is called the Absag Da'ak, but there's different kinds of ways to say this. It causes a Yichud in Ak of his Chachma and Bina. Chachma is male, Bina is female, and this is what we're always looking for, because we're looking for the reproduction of spiritual energy. So and what happens is that this ben, as we're going to see, that, or what we've already said, that the sag comes out, the sag of sag comes out of the eyes of Ak, forms the olam and the kudim for the tibur, alamata, that is from the belly button going downward for the celestial being called Ak. And they break, is what we said before. And what are you going to do about it? What you're going to do about it is yearn for it and cause this man to go up to the Absag Da'ak. And as a result of that, it's going to produce a new Shefa. This Shefa is going to be called Ma HaChadash, the new Ma. Ma, Yud Vav Dalet, Ke Aleph, Vav Aleph, Vav, Ke Aleph. And it will, in different kinds of ways, it'll be complicated, attach itself to the broken pieces of the ben and save them, pull them back up. So he says, so what happens is, Nislavish b'malvushivishim shalo, shehim partzufi atzilus, and then the Ak, which is panimi to everything, as you start to bring these things up, are going to be able to fix up those broken pieces, and Ak will be able to be panimi to all of that, and as a result of that, this is the beginning of the Olam Hatikon, and that is the share for today.